Okay, now that we have spoken about cost-benefit analysis, we have spoken about marginal analysis, so you know that economics is about decision making. People have to take decisions. They have to take decisions because there are scarcity of resources, and when they take decisions, they have to do a marginal benefit versus marginal cost analysis, and whenever they are unable to take a decision based on marginal benefit or marginal cost, there is this exogenous incentive or disincentive that really pushes them towards a decision or takes them away from a decision. Right? Now this is true for the level of individuals, and this is true also for the level of society. So now you can understand what a chaotic system the economic system is. So every individual, every economic agent is taking so many decisions, so many choices at every point in time, and for every decision making they are actually doing a psychological analysis of costs and benefits of taking that decision. So really it is a very chaotic process, but we have to put some method to the madness, right? So let us kind of understand what really this choice making interacts in society, what happens when the choice making interacts in the society. Now what do I mean by that? If you remember, I said that in economics we have economic agents, and they can be divided into two groups, that is buyers and sellers. So basically the buyers are taking decisions at every point in time, the sellers are taking decisions at every point in time, and there is really an interaction of the buyers and the sellers. The decision of buyers is interacting with the decision of the sellers, and we are able to see some consequence of those interactions. So everyone in society, all individuals are economic agents. We have grouped them as buyers and sellers, and we are studying their interaction as two distinct groups. So we are looking at the interaction of the buyers, we are looking at the interaction of sellers, and then we are bringing that interaction together and studying those interactions in unison with one another. Now when you look at the interaction of buyers, that is basically called demand analysis, which we will cover in module 2. When you look at the interaction of sellers, that is called supply analysis or supply model, once again to be covered in module 2. But the place where these buyers or demanders and the sellers or the suppliers interact is known as the market. So the market is an economic institution which helps to study the interaction of buyers and sellers. In other words, the market is a place where buyers and sellers interact, and if we study the market, we are able to understand the nature of interaction of buyers and sellers and what is the result of such interaction. So you can understand that market is a very important concept because it really helps to put a method to the madness, right? All these choices interacting. So we are really now thematically laying out how we are going to study those interaction of choices. We are going to divide the individuals into buyers and sellers, the two groups, analyze the interaction of the buyers under demand analysis, analyze the interaction of sellers in supply analysis, and then bring the two groups together and study their joint interaction in the economic institution of market. Now before we move in that direction in model 2, let us first understand what is really a market. Now market is a place where the buyers and the sellers, the two groups, come and interact. Now the buyers come with their willingness to pay. So the buyers want to buy something and they have a willingness to pay. The sellers want to sell something and they have a willingness to accept. So let's say there is this object, an apple, right? A nice big red apple. The buyers want to buy that apple and the sellers want to sell that apple, right? And the buyers have a willingness to pay. So they think that, okay, at maximum, I'm willing to offer $10 for this apple. So the maximum willingness to pay of the buyers for this nice red apple is $10. And for the sellers, the minimum willingness to accept is, let's say, $8. So the sellers are not going to sell it for any less than $8, and the buyers are not going to buy it for any more than $10, right? Now let's say the buyers and the sellers come in to the market, and the buyers ask the sellers, okay, how much should I pay for this apple? The seller obviously wants to maximize his profit, right? So he says, okay, pay me 20. Is the buyer going to buy? The answer is no, because the willingness to pay maximum is $10, and that is beyond the buyer's maximum willingness to pay. So the buyer walks off. Next seller, how much? Seller says 15. Again the buyer opposes and says, no, I'm not going to pay. So the buyer is not going to buy for any price that is higher than $10, right? When the seller says that, okay, I want to charge $10, the buyer will be willing to buy it. But even then, the buyer will want to minimize the price as much as possible and maybe instead buy for $9 or maybe $8. Now, if the buyer offers something like $7, then the seller will not be willing to accept it. So that means what I'm trying to say is that at any price above $10, the buyers are not going to buy because it is above their maximum willingness to pay, and at any price less than $8, the sellers are not going to sell because it is less than their minimum willingness to accept. So only at price $8, $9 or $10, this deal between buyers and sellers may take place. So that means in a market, the buyers can come and interact, the sellers can come and interact, but a dynamic interaction, an intersection of those interactions will take place only when they come to a point of agreement. So buyers and sellers basically reach a point of agreement in this institution called market, and the point of agreement between the buyers and sellers is actually called the equilibrium or the market equilibrium. And the equilibrium in economics is denoted by a capital E. So the market equilibrium is basically a point of agreement between the buyers and the sellers. Now please understand that point of agreement does not necessarily mean fair share or does not necessarily mean that there is equity. Okay, so I am not saying that the price is always decided at $9. That means the buyers have been able to pay $1 less than the maximum and the sellers have been able to get $1 more than their minimum. The price could have been decided at $8, which means that the sellers have accepted their minimum willingness to accept, whereas the buyers have been able to gain because they have been able to pay $2 less than their maximum willingness to pay. So I'm not trying to say anything about equity here. All I'm saying that equilibrium is the point of agreement. Both groups, the buyers and the sellers, have resolved their conflict and decided to operate at that point of agreement. Now, equilibrium is not always equitable. It does not necessarily mean fairness. Please remember that. Equilibrium is not the same as equity. It is not the same as justice. It is not the same as fairness. Equilibrium simply means an agreement between the two groups, that is the buyers and the sellers. The objective of every market is to move towards this equilibrium. That is the purpose of every market. Every market eventually wants to get to an equilibrium. It wants to resolve the dispute between buyers and sellers and come to a point of agreement. Now, this point of agreement may or may not be equitable, like I said, but that is the purpose. Now, usually the market is able to take care of itself and reach this point of agreement or reach this equilibrium on its own. That means the buyers and sellers will work amongst themselves, they will do something and they will come to a point of agreement on their own, and that is known as free market. So free market basically means that the buyers and sellers and the forces of demand and supply work towards bringing the market towards an equilibrium. In most capitalist countries like United States, free market is very strong. That means buyers and sellers are often able to resolve their conflict within each other and markets reach equilibrium on their own. However, sometimes the market may not reach an equilibrium on its own, and there might be an exogenous intervention necessary to set the equilibrium in the market. That means a third party needs to intervene to bring about an equilibrium in the market, and that third party is often the government. Now, in case of socialist countries, and now it won't be wrong for me to say that really in today's world we do not have any pure socialism, but let's say countries which are relatively a little more socialist than capitalist, in those countries this intervention by the third party, the intervention by the government is a little bit more common, a little bit more frequent. But whether there is intervention of government or not, the ultimate objective is to reach equilibrium. So in case the market is not able to get to this equilibrium on its own, government intervention really becomes necessary. So next we are going to really talk about government intervention in the market and how government intervenes in the market, and then what it really means at the macro level or in the big picture.